Now, we do know that auto sales have been slowing down among other things, and car makers are struggling to get their cars sold. But if we look at the market of pre-owned cars, the story is completely different. In the last 1 year, they've managed to continue that double-digit growth trajectory, which clearly means that people want to buy pre-owned cars. Now, how will this entire scenario change, especially now that we are at a transition point wherein the BS4 norms will be out and enter BS6 norms, which means every car will have to be compliant to BS6. Let me bring on board Gajendra Jangid, co-founder and CMO of Cars24, which, as we know, is a portal to buy and sell pre-owned cars. Thank you so much, Gajendra, for joining us on The Money Show. I want to dive straight in first into the whole conundrum that people are having at this point of time as to can they still buy a BS4 pre-owned car, and then we can get into this entire bit on why a pre-owned car is extremely attractive. So yes, Gajendra, as we know, come I think March or April, you're going to be able to buy only BS6 cars, at least from the fresh market. But what about second-hand cars or pre-owned cars? Will people still be able to buy BS4 pre-owned cars?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on this show. To answer your question, and to consumers, definitely anyone who wants to buy or sell a BS4 cars post 1st April 2020, when the rule applied that any consumer can only buy BS6 compliant car, it does not impact anything whatsoever in nature when it comes to used car. As per the ruling of the court, any used car what you are in possession is eligible to run on the road for its lifetime. So any consumer who is owning a BS4 cars, or in fact BS3, does not need to worry about anything. Those cars can be on the road, and there is no implication on those cars as of today.
Okay, now BS6 is going to come into play. So I, as an individual, if I want to buy a car and I think that, maybe I'll still get a good deal on BS4 cars, if they are, of course, second-hand, because I suppose registration of new BS4 cars is out of the question. So do you think that we're going to see a drop in prices of these pre-owned cars once BS6 comes into play?
I think over there, so let me just tell you how this entire pricing is going to have an impact of BS6 and how it is going to translate into BS4 cars, which are primarily used cars. So as what I've read in the news and what I gathered so far, in the BS6, the prices are likely to increase for new cars up to 10%. And if we split that into diesel car versus petrol cars, diesel car will see higher increase in price as compared to petrol cars. So what is actually going to happen, that as new cars are going to get, the pricing of the new car is going to get increased, so consumer will naturally shift towards buying a more pre-owned cars, primarily because it's cheaper now. Because especially diesel cars, when, like I said earlier, diesel car will go up, the price of the new diesel BS6 compliant car will go up to 10%. So now consumer who wants to buy a diesel car will likely to go and buy more pre-owned cars. So now when this transition happens, what is going to happen? Now there will be more demand of used cars in the market. So when there is no demand of used cars in the market, that is going to just give a pricing surge when it comes to pre-owned cars. So as there is more demand exists in the market, naturally the pricing of used car likely to go up as well. So I think overall it is a good news for the used car industry. First, because the overall number of transactions are going to go increase, primarily due to the factor that new cars going to become more expensive, which will impact consumer to shift their choices to buy a used car. And second, this higher demand will also going to give more yield to the car owners who are in process of selling their car or in buying a car. They will get benefit out of it.
Basically, Gajendra, if let's say I am a car owner and I decide that, let me use the Cars24 portal to sell off my pre-owned car, do you think now is a good time to do that? Because like you mentioned, the demand for pre-owned cars is going to go up, which in turn will increase prices as well?
Yeah, I think that right now is a good time because as we are sitting right now in January 2020, and it will take 3 months before the BS6 rule goes get implemented. So I think the timing is, it cannot be perfect, and it is a good time, as we are already seeing the surge in the pricing for the used car going up in the market. So I would strongly recommend to you and other consumers who are in kind of a not so sure that they need to sell a car or not, but this is right now is a good time to sell a car.
Gajendra, on the other side, if I want to buy a pre-owned car, then do you suggest that I do it right now, or should I wait, for 3 months after BS6 comes in, etc., to look for a pre-owned BS4?
I think over there, what consumers need to do is first just to do some research on the model of which the cars you want to buy, because what's going to happen when the BS6 rule comes out in the picture, there may be few cars which OEMs decide to withdraw from the market because that may be too expensive for them to upgrade those cars from BS4 to BS6. So be very careful in terms of which car you would want to invest into. So if the particular model is going to get out from the market, you may end up losing a lot of money if you decide to purchase that car, because once a car model gets out of the market and OEM does not manufacture it, the pricing of that car in the market goes down. So my only advice to those consumers is that if you guys want to buy a used car, let's just make sure that those model will still exist post April 2020, so that you do not get hurt by if that model get discontinued by the OEMs.
Okay, fair enough. Gajendra, is there going to be any changes in the regulatory bit? I mean, how will the paperwork, work out?
You mean to say for pre-owned car or new car?
For pre-owned cars.
Yeah, for the pre-owned car, there is no impact whatsoever in nature in terms of any kind of paperwork. Pre-owned car, I think from this compliance perspective from BS4 to BS6, for the used car owners or for the buying and selling of a used car, there is no impact in terms of either paperwork or ownership transfer per se.
Okay. Is there any change in registration also? Because, from what I understand, that come April, new BS4 cars are not allowed to be registered. What is the status when it comes to pre-owned BS4 cars?
I think registration wise, there's, again, like I said earlier, there is no change whatsoever in nature. Okay. Even if you are driving a BS4 car, and if you decide to either you are buying a BS4 car or you're selling a BS4 car, you do not have to worry about anything. All the ownership transfer or registration transfer is going to have the same process. RTOs are going to follow the same process. There is no additional paperwork required for you to to get the ownership transfer of the car. So from the pre-owned car perspective, there is no impact this change is going to have in terms of any ownership transfer of the used car per se. So consumer need not to worry about this change.
Okay, excellent. Gajendra, thank you so much for joining us then with all that insight when it comes to pre-owned cars. We'll definitely touch upon this topic again very soon. Thanks so much, meantime, Gajendra, for joining in. Okay, well, it's the end of the decade, and Maruti as well, by the way, managed to complete 2 full decades in the country. And earlier, we had also caught up with Shashank Srivastava. He's the executive director for Maruti Suzuki. He spoke about the big trends of the 2020s for the auto industry. Listen in.
So if you look at the last 20 years or so, and you break it down into 5-year periods, then the average CAGR for the last 5 years is actually lowest. It was a little bit higher in the previous 5 years and even higher in the previous 10 years. Of course, it's not very unusual because we are a developing economy, we are a growing economy, and we started with a lower base, which obviously affects the CAGR when you take the 5-year period for the last 20 years. So, but that is a trend in the sense that while the volumes have increased, we have seen a lessening of the growth over this period, over the last 20 years. Now, the second thing is that, of course, we have now become one of the largest passenger vehicle market in the world. we're actually currently 5th in the world. So that's obviously in the last 20 years we have grown tremendously, as has China, for example. But if you look at the other trends, then I would say the average age of buyers have actually come down. So it used to be around 40, 41 years, let's say about 17, 20 years back, but it's now close to 34. If you look at the women buyers, they have increased significantly. So it used to be about 2-3%, 4% earlier, but it's now in some models close to 16% as well. If you see the body types, then earlier hatches were very large. They were like almost 70%, but today hatches comprise about 45% of the market. If you look at SUVs, which were just about 4% about 15 years back, they are now close to 35%. I mean, MPV and MUV, the MUV segment is close to 35%. So these are the broad trends. Of course, vehicles are pricier because of regulations as well as other reasons of cost. They are more feature rich. And if you, however, see this one trend which hasn't changed, and I think it's something to do with the demographic of our country, it is the first time buyers are more or less around 48 to 50% in the industry. So we see an increase in the replacement buying, but the first time buyers also is relatively around 50%, sometimes 47, sometimes 51, 52 and so on.
With that, we'll wrap it up in this edition of The Money Show. Thank you so much for watching.